What is up, everybody? We are back. It's Super Bowl Sunday, huh? Let's get it. Let's get it. We got a whole lot of stuff we got to go over for the Super Bowl. It is currently 2 o'clock in the morning. That's why it's kind of dark out and lighting's a little bit different, stuff like that. Been spending the whole day going over a whole lot of stuff for the Super Bowl. Don't worry. This will probably be a super long video, so buckle in. It's gonna be a long one probably. But we still will be having an NBA video today as well. I know there's a couple NBA games. I think there's just 2, but we'll definitely go over that as well. But let's hop into this NFL Super Bowl, huh? Okay, a lot to go over. So bear with me here because I'm gonna throw a lot of information at you guys. Okay. The way I want to approach this, I want to approach every single person that has a line, right? So going from the top to the bottom down. Okay. So Matthew Stafford has currently, right now at this moment, 4, has currently 8 lines out, right? And then, we'll just go down the list, like Cam Akers, he has like 7. Sonny Michel, he has 5. Cooper Kupp, he has 4, you know what I mean? So we're going to go down through all these players on both sides of the ball, and I'm going to tell you whether you should go over or under on a certain statistical category for one of these guys. And yeah, that's kind of how we'll attack today's video. All right, let's get it. All right. My lock of the day. My lock of the day for the Super Bowl, the last game of the NFL season. It's going to be Cooper Kupp. And hear me out. Trust me, boys, I went down and I looked at all the numbers. I went back to every single game that Cooper Kupp's played this season, including the playoffs, regular season playoff, all of it. The line they have him out right now is 108.5. Okay? The Cincinnati Bengals gave up 108 yards only 6 times, but they gave it up to Devontae Adams, who had 206 yards, Darren Waller, who had 116 yards, Mike Williams had 110, George Kittle had 151, Mark Andrews had 125, and A.J. Brown in the divisional had 142. 6 guys, 6 Pro Bowlers. Everybody else, the other 11 guys that weren't able to hit that 108.5 mark, not a single one of them even worth noting. I mean, they played the Bears, and I just put the Bears because I don't even I was like, that's like the worst passing offense in the NFL. Guys like Donovan Peoples-Jones, let's see, Laviska Shenault, T.J. Hawkins is kind of a Pro Bowler, but just guys like that. You know what I mean? The other 11 guys that the Bengals were able to hold under that the mark that they've got Cooper Kupp at is guys that just really aren't that talented, right? But the guys that are on that Pro Bowl caliber top tier level, like Cooper Kupp, were able to get over that 108 mark, but most of them by a long shot. Also, do note, the Bengals gave up the 7th most passing yards in the league this year, okay? So they were kind of one of the worst passing defenses in the league when it came to giving up yardage total, right? As far as Cooper Kupp's performances, though, right? Because you also have to look at how Cooper Kupp did throughout the course of the season as well. He had 12 games where he was able to go over 108 yards. Okay, of note, the Cardinals had one of the best passing defenses in the league. He had 123 yards versus the Cardinals. 49ers, he feasted on the 49ers all 3 times that he played him. He had 142 yards, 118 yards, 122 yards. The 49ers had one of the best passing offenses in the league. But that's not what we need to look at. Okay, that's just me giving an example. Like, he did play really well against really good pass defenses. So like I said, the Bengals have the 7th worst pass defense in the league, right? So looking at someone like the Lions, who have the 9th worst, right around that same average area as the Bengals, he had 156 yards on the Lions. That's kind of a lot, right? But then you look at Tampa Bay, who was 12th, right around that same area, right around almost middle of the field, middle of the pack. 183 yards versus the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. That's a lot of yards. That looks pretty yummy if you're asking me. The only team that was really able to have any sort of success really at stopping Cooper Kupp this year, it looks like it was the Cardinals. The Cardinals, of course, played the Rams 3 times this year. And he had 61 yards in one of their matchups, 64 yards in one of their matchups, and in the playoffs, during the regular season, he had 123 yards. So he only had one game where he kind of played up to his caliber of yardage goes. But for the most part, the only people that were really able to stop him were teams that were top-rated defenses, such as the Cardinals, The Packers had one of the top pass defenses in the league. The Bears stopped him. He had 108 yards. He needs 108.5. So technically, really, the Bears didn't stop him, but you know what I mean. 12 out of his 12 games he went over, and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 8 games he went under. So I like, Cooper Kupp's got it. They set Cooper Kupp's yards at 108.5. So there's that stat category to look at. We're also looking at his other ones as well. Okay, looking at longest catch. Now this one's interesting. I love that Underdog has kind of added this to like the postseason, like longest catch, longest rush. Those are kind of cool. So looking at longest catch, okay, from the Bengals' perspective, in every single game the Bengals have played this year, postseason and regular season, they've given up over a 31.5 longest catch, because that's what they have Cooper Kupp set at right now for longest catches at 31.5 yards. They gave that up 12 times and a total of 16 times over the course of the regular season, okay? They gave up 34 yards to Justin Jefferson, 32 yards to Laviska Shenault, 59 yards to Devontae Adams. Again, Devontae Adams, a top-tier wide receiver. 33 yards to T.J. Hawkinson, 39 yards to Hollywood Brown, 35 yards to Rashad Bateman. Two receivers in the same game having over that longest catch threshold. 60 yards to Donovan Peoples-Jones. I remember that was a Hail Mary, though, so I don't know if that really counts, but I do remember that was a Hail Mary to Donovan Peoples-Jones. Chase Claypool had 41 yards. Mike Williams had 47 yards. 44 yards to Jalen Guyton. Two receivers in the same game hitting that threshold. 53 to Mecole Hardman. And in the playoffs, A.J. Brown had a 41-yard catch. And against the Chiefs in the playoffs, Mecole Hardman had a 44-yard catch. So that longest catch one for Cooper Kupp is also interesting because the Bengals have given up actually quite a few throughout the course of the season over that 31.5-yard catch. The times that the Bengals were able to stop it, it was against really mediocre passing offenses. For example, the Bears, the Steelers, the Jets, the 49ers, who don't really have that elite of a pass game, if we're being honest. The Broncos, of course, they don't have an elite pass game. Those are teams, of course, Matthew Stafford and the Rams have a much more explosive, much better passing offense than those teams, like the Bears and the Steelers, for example. You know what I mean? And Cooper Kupp was able to hit that over 31.5 mark 10 times this season. So that 31.5 catch mark is also one that's really tempting for me. But after looking at all the numbers, okay, my lock of the day, Cooper Kupp, like I said, is Cooper Kupp. But I'm going to go over on Cooper Kupp's 108.5 yards receiving. I really like the longest catch. But, sometimes he just doesn't get the long catch right because Cooper Kupp gets a lot of catches, right? And so I'd much rather get all those yards instead of maybe he doesn't get the big bomb, but he gets a bunch of like 15 to 20 yard catches, So my over lock of the day is going to be Cooper Kupp over 108 yards receiving. All right, looking at Matthew Stafford. He, like I said, he's got 8 lines. He's got a 36.5 pass attempts, 40.5 longest completion, 24.5 completions total, 20.85 fantasy points, 2.5 rush attempts, 6.5 rush yards, 286 pass yards, and an interception. If you had asked me before the playoffs, I would have probably said interception easy, but I don't believe Matthew Stafford has thrown a pick in the postseason. I could be wrong, maybe 1 or 2. But he's played much better in the postseason than he was playing in the regular season. Looking at the numbers, okay, the one of these 8 that really caught my eye was pass attempts, okay? I went back to past Super Bowl history, the last 10 years in Super Bowl history, and the only time quarterbacks didn't hit this 36.5 pass attempts threshold, was in blowouts like the Seahawks and the Broncos, blowout Super Bowls like that, right? Or teams that were up for the majority of the game, and then right at the end, the other team was able to catch back up, like, for example, 49ers and the Chiefs. Obviously, Patrick Mahomes went over on his threshold, but Jimmy Garoppolo was up for most of that game, so he didn't hit that passing threshold. So looking back at past history, at Super Bowls that were competitive, that were pretty even throughout the entirety of the game, both quarterbacks went way over this 37 pass attempts mark. So that 37 one caught my eye the most. Looking at how Stafford did on going over or under that 36.5 passing threshold, he split it right down the middle. He went 10 games over and 10 games under, including the playoffs. So it's kind of interesting. In games where Matthew Stafford lost or it was close, he got way up into that pass. He had a 48 pass attempt game versus the Titans, 41 passing attempts versus the Cardinals, their first loss of the season, 41 to the 49ers, another loss. in games where they were down or they lost, Matthew Stafford's pass attempts have gone way up. Obviously, it makes sense, right? And then in games when they were down, or they blew teams out, for example, like the Giants, he only threw the ball 28 times. Or, for example, in the wild card, when they played the Cardinals, he only threw the ball 17 times. So, this is a game I'm not anticipating by any means to be a blowout. I think it should be a pretty even affair. I think it should be a really fair game. But, of course, if you're going to look at Matthew Stafford, you have to also look at the flip side. So, looking at the flip side for the Bengals. Counting all of their games except for their last regular season game, I didn't count that one because the Bengals had most of their starters. They went right down the middle too. The Bengals went 9 for 9 on their unders and overs for allowing quarterbacks to go over that passing threshold. Elite quarterbacks were the ones that really got to them, and also teams when they were down, obviously when they were blowing teams out, for example. Elite quarterbacks, Pro Bowl caliber quarterbacks that they played, right? Aaron Rodgers, he went over for 39. Even in Jimmy Garoppolo, who's again not an elite quarterback, but he can win. He's a baller, you know what I mean? He had 41 pass attempts. Justin Herbert got close. He had 35 pass attempts. That's a guy that's a top caliber kind of dude. Mahomes got close. He also got to that 35 passing threshold. And Patrick Mahomes, in the championship game, he got to 39. So the only guys that the Bengals were really able to keep in check were guys that like a Justin Fields, Trevor Lawrence. Those guys that are really horrible. That have really bad passing offensive schemes, or quarterbacks that really just aren't that talented. I think we're facing a guy like Matthew Stafford. This 36.5 pass attempts threshold is a pretty solid line, if you ask me. So the one that I do like the most for Matthew Stafford is definitely going to be over on his 36.5 pass attempts. I like this one simply, just like I said, just going over those numbers like that. I know it's pretty split even down the middle, but it's only split even because the Rams did kind of blow out a lot of guys, and the Bengals only played a handful of elite quarterbacks really. So I anticipate this game to be really close. I anticipate both these offenses to be super explosive, go back and forth. Like I said, in Super Bowl history, when games have been close, both quarterbacks hit this threshold. So my favorite line for Matthew Stafford is over 36.5 pass attempts. As far as the backs go for the Rams, this is where things do get a little bit of complications because the numbers from prior in the season really don't matter all that much, right? Because obviously during the course of the season, Cam Akers wasn't there. The only games we can really gauge, off of as far as stats go for these lines is the NFC Championship game. Basically, Sony Michel and Cam Akers split it right down the middle as far as carries go. Cam Akers had 13, Sony Michel had 10. So I think how I normally do, like in my NBA lines, kind of things I want you guys to stay away from or go under. It's probably going to have to stay away from or go under for as far as Cam Akers, maybe rush yards, go under on that 63.5 rush yards. Obviously, Cam Akers is a little bit more of the primary back, but against Cincinnati is the third best rush defense in the NFL. They played the run really well, and it's pretty impressive when you ask me because not only does the Bengals have the third best rush defense in the league, they have the third best rush defense in the league in the AFC North, right? So they're playing the Ravens, they play the Steelers, two of the top three backs in the league. Two of the top, I guess technically two of the top backs were in the AFC North, right? Joe Mixon and Najee Harris, but Najee Harris, one of the top backs in the league. As far as yards go, that's in the AFC North. Lamar Jackson and that Ravens running game, that's in the North. So it's super impressive that the Bengals, even in the AFC North, were able to have one of the best. Even the Browns. Shoot, I forgot about the Browns. Nick Chubb. So it's very impressive. I don't see Cam Akers or Sony Michel really being able to hit these lines at all. So definitely under on 63.5 yards for Cam Akers, and I just stay away from Sony Michel. As far as the other two receiver lines for the Rams, Odell Beckham and Van Jefferson. Like I said, the Bengals do have the 7th worst pass defense in the league when it comes to allowing yardage, okay? I think 66 yards is a little bit high for Odell Beckham. I like his longest reception over 24.5 yards more than his total yardage, simply for the fact the Bengals don't necessarily have an elite corner. They're still going to... I just feel like this is how it's going to play out, right? Cooper Kupp's going to get a lot of the underneath stuff. He's going to get a majority of the catches. And then while they're paying so much attention to Cooper Kupp, boom, deep bomb over the top, over the middle to Odell Beckham. I like the deep bomb chance more than him getting a bunch of catches to get up to that 66-yard total, if you see what I'm saying. So I like that deep bomb chance for the longest reception over 24.5 for Odell Beckham. And this may shock some people. Van Jefferson has a 33.5 total receiving yards and a 17.5 longest reception. Almost opposite story for him is what I'm saying here. Van Jefferson has been a deep play guy all year, big play guy. He gets one big catch a game that busts open the game. Throughout the playoffs, he has not had very much success at all. There's a reason for that. They played the Cardinals, who have one of the best pass defenses in the league. Then they played the Buccaneers, who have one of the best pass defenses in the league. Then they played the 49ers, who have almost the best pass defense in the league. I.e., not that much miscommunications happen in the secondary when it comes to Van Jefferson trying to get that deep bomb. This is going to be the weird one, but I like Van Jefferson's over 33.5 yards. The longest reception is going to come. I wouldn't be surprised if he gets a deep post over the middle that's over 33.5 yards, and that kills two birds with one. So longest reception and his total receiving yards. So I love Van Jefferson's over 33.5 receiving yards, not only because I think there will be that breakdown and that miscommunication in the secondary, with the not so talented Bengals secondary against the pass. I also think there's going to be so much attention drawn towards Cooper Kupp and Odell Beckham. There's going to be a play or two where Van Jefferson's going to get forgot, or he's going to get mashed up with like a linebacker on accident, something like that. So I love his over on 33.5 yards. And to round out the Rams lines, these last two receivers, Kendall Blanton and Ben Skronik. No disrespect to your last name there, Ben. Sorry if you ever see this video. They're traps. I mean, don't mess with these lines. Obviously, they're put him here. Ben Skronik probably won't even see the field one time, and Kendall Blanton might come in like twice on a run play. Don't trust it. These are obviously, sometimes they just like to throw out some trap lines just to catch your attention, to maybe go wander on one of these guys or something, but just stay away from those guys in general. Obviously, we've never heard of these two players all year. There's a reason for that, right? Stay away from those two guys. All right, halfway through the video, down to the Bengals lines. This is where it's going to get pretty fun. Mr. Joe Burrow, Joe Mixon, Jamar Chase, all those boys. Super explosive offense, super talented, super young offense for the Bengals. Let's get into the numbers. All right, Joe Mixon has been the workhorse in the playoffs, and I mean the workhorse. Up over 20-plus touches a game between receiving and rushing. He's been close to or hit or gone way over this 80. Let me make sure I'm getting it right for you guys. This 88.5 rushing and receiving yards total. I mean, even against the Chiefs in a game where they were down, the majority of that game, they still gave him the ball 21 times, and they just kept running the ball. They didn't have very much success against the Kansas City Chiefs running the football somehow, but they kept feeding him the rock, and I think the same kind of deal is going to happen here. Don't get me wrong, Joe Burrow's going to get his touches. They're going to throw the ball, but what does Joe Mixon do a lot as well as run the ball? He gets a lot of catches, 3 to 4, 6 catches for running back out of the backfield. That's a lot of yards that he can rack up in a lot of, extra possessions and catches and touches he gets. The Rams also have one of the worst, believe it or not, even with Aaron Donald and Von Miller and all those boys inside, have one of the worst rush defenses in the league. So Joe Mixon, of course, a top 5 running back in the league. Bengals will have the greatest offensive line, but anticipate that if the Bengals do get down in this game, a lot of checkdowns to Joe Mixon, little screen plays, flip out plays to Joe Mixon, if he doesn't end up getting, a majority of those yards through rushing on the ground. That being said, though, you don't have to go over too many over too many stats for this one. My favorite line for Joe Mixon is over 13.5 longest run. I mean, he could. I love the longest run ones, especially when there's something short just like this. Like I said, the Rams have one of the worst rush defenses in the league. There's almost like a 99% chance that Joe Mixon's just going to bust one run for at least 14 yards, right? I don't see why he can't do that. Also, his rushing touchdown, receiving touchdown, this is definitely a game where he's probably going to have that touchdown. He's only had one in the playoffs, but this is one. This is a game where Joe Mixon's going to get a lot of mismatches with those linebackers for the Rams that aren't going to be able to keep up with him if he does go out of the backfield. Or like I said, they have a really bad rush defense, so he does get that rushing touchdown. But my favorite Joe Mixon line is over on that 13.5 longest run. As far as Samaje Perine goes, I mean, again, trap lines, don't mess with it. Stick with the guys that have been playing all year long, and we know what they can do. What are the odds that Samaje Perine can get a rush over 4 yards? Pretty high, right? But who knows? Maybe he doesn't even touch the field, right? Maybe he doesn't touch the field the whole fourth quarter, Stuff like that. We can't trust guys that haven't really been in playing at all, right? These are just trap lines. Can he get 4 rush yards? Probably. Am I saying maybe do 4 rush yards? Yeah, probably. But stay away from Samaje Perine. Now, as far as this dynamic trio at the wide receiver position that the Bengals have, the only way I thought I could fairly kind of back this up with statistical evidence, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers have a pretty talented wide receiver core, right? With Mike Evans, Chris Godwin, Gronkowski, right? A team that has kind of those top tier wide receivers and a really good tight end, right? In that game, where the Rams play the Buccaneers the first time around. So this is the first time around. Mike Evans 106, Chris Godwin 74 yards, Gronkowski 55 yards. Okay, Uzama set at 27.5. Tight ends did have a little bit of success when they were matched up with elite receivers. Like I said, Gronkowski had 55 yards when he had Evans and Godwin on the field with him as well. And the other team that I also thought could match up pretty well as far as wide receiver depth and talent was the Cardinals, who had A.J. Green, who had 67 yards in their first matchup, 102 yards in their second matchup. DeAndre Hopkins had 67 yards the first matchup, 54 yards the second matchup. Max Williams had 66 yards in the first matchup, and then Max Williams obviously was traded by Zach Ertz the second time around, who he had 42 yards. So when matched up on the field, when the Rams have to defend more talented guys like Jamar Chase, Dee Higgins, Tyler Boyd, the tight end seems to get open a lot. So C.J. Uzama set at 27.5 receiving yards. You'd have to think over on C.J. Uzama just because of all the attention on Boyd and Higgins and Chase. Also, it looks like the top guy, it looks like from all these trio of guys that have had really good games, it looks like their number one guys have kind of gotten free. And I know the Rams have the big names on defense, but looking at their defensive statistic categories on the years, they were really a middle of the pack defense. They really were. I would anticipate Jamar Chase to probably hit this 79.5 receiving yards total as well. But I think it's the most fun if you go for his touchdown. Over on a touchdown for Jamar Chase, anytime they get to the red zone, or if Jamar Chase can get on that one-on-one coverage, Joe Burrow, he's always got, he's looking down the field, he's got one eye looking at Jamar Chase. So I think his touchdown would be the best one to go for Jamar Chase. And as far as Boyd and Higgins, like I said, the Rams' big names do not align with the stats that they give up on the year. They gave up the 11th most yardage total in the league to receivers, running backs, tight ends. Like I said, Jalen Ramsey already said he's going to probably be man-to-man and just shadow Jamar Chase all over the field. He's going to get free occasionally. That's why I like his touchdowns more than his yards for Jamar Chase. I think Dee Higgins has a big game. I'm going to go over on his catches as my favorite line for Dee Higgins, simply because, like I said, there's going to be a lot of attention drawn towards Jamar Chase. This is exactly what happened last game. Jamar Chase still had a good game last game versus the Chiefs, but Dee Higgins had 6 catches, 10 targets, 103 yards. I think the same kind of deal is going to happen here. I mean, look at me straight in the face and say, besides Jalen Ramsey, who else can you name in that secondary? Can you name another corner? Exactly. So Dee Higgins is a mismatch nightmare for a lot of corners, because I'm pretty sure Dee Higgins is a big guy. He's about 6'5" or something like that. Anticipate Dee Higgins to go over on hhis catches, which is set at 5.5. As far as Tyler Boyd goes, Joe Burrow, when he gets in his bag, shows he can just hit any one of these receivers, right? Obviously, me being a Ravens fan, even when he played the Ravens, all three of them diced us up. I'm going to say, for Tyler Boyd, over on his longest reception, which is set at 17.5, for the same exact reason I think this is going to happen to Van Jefferson, right? So much attention to Higgins, so much attention to Chase. Maybe a little bit of a slip up in the secondary, boom, breaks free. Tyler Boyd up the seam, down the sidelines, whatever. Over on 17.5 longest reception for Tyler Boyd. And if you did miss it a little bit earlier, I did say over on C.J. Uzama's 27.5 yards. He's been great in the playoffs. He's had way over that in the playoffs. And historically, the Rams have kind of given up a lot of tight ends when they're on the fields with a lot of other talented receivers. So over on C.J. Uzama. All right. For Joe Burrow, Joe Shiesty, as they say, there's a lot to look at for Joe Burrow. And I'm going to tell you why my favorite overline for Joe Burrow is one that not a lot of people are talking about. And it's going to be over for Joe Burrow's 8.5 longest run. Hear me out. Bengals have one of the worst passing offensive lines in the league. Joe Burrow is going to get pressure in his face. one or two times, he's going to break the contain. There's going to be man defense down the field. They're all going to be matched up way down the field. Joe Burrow's going to scamper a little free. He's going to get that 10-yard first down. Boom. 8.5 longest run. Got it. Simply for the fact, like I said, Aaron Donald's going to be bringing a whole lot of pressure. Von Miller's going to be bringing a whole lot of pressure. Those guys are going to be coming. They're going to be trying to eat up Joe Burrow all day like the Chiefs did. Or was it the Chiefs? Like the Tennessee Titans did, right? Joe Burrow, obviously a pretty mobile guy. When he did play, or got a little bit of pressure in his face last week, he had 25 yards rushing last week. Against Tennessee, he had 5 yards rushing, which doesn't hit that total, but trust me, they're going to get a lot of pressure in his face. He's going to get out of contain one of those times. He's going to break off that big run, trust me. Over on 8.5 longest run for Joe Burrow is my favorite Joe Burrow line. Okay, a lot of stuff I threw at you guys. I know this is going to be probably like a 25-minute long, 30-minute long video. It's going to be something long. Rerunning back down through everything I just said there. 36.5 pass attempts for Matthew Stafford is my favorite line, over for Matthew Stafford. Cam Akers under on his 63.5 rushing yards versus a talented rushing defense versus for the Bengals. Stay away from Sonny Michel. Over 108 yards receiving for Cooper Kupp. Longest reception for Odell Beckham. Total yards for Van Jefferson. These are all overs, by the way. Stay away from Kendall. Stay away from Ben. Over on 8.5 longest run for Joe Burrow. Over on 88.5 rushing and receiving yards for Joe Mixon. Over on a touchdown for Jamar Chase. Stay away from Samaje Perine. He might get that 3.5 rushing yards, though. He might get a 4-yard run, though. Over on Tee Higgins catches, and over on Tyler Boyd's longest reception, and as well as over on CJ Uzomah's 27.5 yards. I know it's going to be a super long video. I know I just said that a couple seconds ago, but a couple of unders I did want to throw at you guys, just in case, because I know a lot of people, you can't just go over on every single one. I'll give you some unders. Matthew Stafford or under 2.5 rush attempts. That's such an easy under for me. Matthew Stafford is not going to be running the ball 3 times in this game. There's no way he does that. Under on Matthew Stafford, 2.5 rush yards. Stay away from Jamar Chase's. Go under on Jamar Chase's 3.5 rush yards. This is a very disciplined defense, very veteran defense with Aaron Donald, Von Miller, those guys. They're not going to let a little jet sweep happen with Jamar Chase. He's not going to be able to get a handoff here and catch him by surprise and get off there. It's not going to happen against a veteran, experienced defense. Under on Jamar Chase's 3.5 rush yards. And the only one that I kind of like for another under is going to be Tyler Boyd, under 42.5 receiving yards. I just don't think there's going to be enough pickings to go around between Uzomah, between Higgins, and between Chase. I just don't think Tyler Boyd's going to be able to get up to that total. Chance it happens, always chance it happens, but that's the one more under I kind of like for this game. I normally don't do this. There are a couple rivals that I do like in this game. Right off the gate, Matthew Stafford and Cooper Kupp have a fantasy points rival. I like Cooper Kupp over Matthew Stafford in this one. Cooper Kupp gets up. Yeah, I mean, he was a fantasy machine this year, obviously. 31 points in that last game, 26 points the game before that. I mean, he gets mad fantasy points. Matthew Stafford, in his own right, gets pretty good fantasy points too. His game versus Tampa, a little bit buffed. I think he had 2 rushing touchdowns in that game, if I'm not wrong. 2 rushing touchdowns in a game for a quarterback, that'll buff your stats mad. I mean, just ask Lamar Jackson, okay? So I like Cooper Kupp over Matthew Stafford and his fantasy points. Because especially if Matthew Stafford does end up throwing a pick in this game, that's going to take a lot of points off. And Cooper Kupp, he's going to get his this game. He's going to get a touchdown. He's going to get a lot of yards. He's going to go way over that 20 points for fantasy. I like Cooper Kupp more than Matthew Stafford for fantasy points. Another one I like in this one, it's going to be pass attempts for Matthew Stafford. I have a gut feeling. I just have a gut feeling the Rams are going to be down in this one. I feel like Matthew Stafford's going to have to pass the ball a whole lot. I think Joe Burrow they're trying to establish the run game. They're going to give it to Joe Mixon a lot more than the Rams are going to give it to Sonny Michel or Cam Akers. I like Matthew Stafford's pass attempts more than Joe Burrow's on that rival. And my favorite of these rivals is Joe Mixon over Cam Akers for plus 6.5 yards receiving and rushing. Joe Mixon is going to get way more receiving and rushing yards than Cam Akers does. I mean, off chance that Cam Akers breaks off like a 50-yard touchdown or something like that, Joe Mixon's going to get the ball way more than Cam Akers is. I feel like this one is an easy lock. The last one I like is, once again, another Joe Mixon versus Cam Akers rival. Rush attempts, straight across. No plus or minus on this one. Who just gets the ball more? and I definitely think it's going to be Joe Mixon. Like I said, I have a feeling the Rams are going to be down the majority of this game. They're going to be passing it a lot more. I think that Joe Mixon's going to definitely be running the football a lot more than the Rams will. Joe Mixon is definitely going to get way more rush attempts than Cam Akers, and especially because there's no, plus whatever. He just has to have simply more rush attempts than Cam Akers. I think that's an easy one. My favorite rival of the day is Joe Mixon more rush attempts than Cam Akers. All right, guys, everyone take a breath with me. A lot of stuff that we just went over. Hopefully I gave you guys a lot of information, stuff that you guys don't have to go back and look at, because it took me about 3 hours to go over all this information, to try to give you guys the best lines that I possibly could. Yeah, I mean, I know this is going to be probably around 30 minutes, probably going to be my longest video ever, but hopefully it can be one of my more successful ones, and hopefully whoever you guys are rooting for, whether you're a Bengals fan, whether you're a Rams fan, hopefully your team wins tomorrow. My brother is a Rams fan, so that's pretty fun, and my best friend is a Bengals fan. Obviously, I'm a Ravens fan. I don't want the AFC North to win the title. I'm over the recency bias and overhype of people calling Joe Burrow Tom Brady already, and he's only in his second year. He led the league in interceptions. They had a mediocre season. They went 10-6. They got blown out by the Browns. They lost to the Jets. They lost to the Bears. It's hard to think that the team that's in the Super Bowl lost to the Bears, lost to the Jets, and got blown out by the Browns. Pretty crazy to think that. I think they're a great team. They've got great foundation. They've got great potential coming up for the next couple of years. Now, I'm not only saying this because I'm a Ravens fan. The Bengals made the playoffs and won the division because the Ravens had to lose a franchise record 6 straight games. It took the Ravens 53 injured players, 50-plus injured players for the Bengals to be able to rally and get back and win the division. The Ravens, with 27 injured players, were the number one team in the division. The number one team in the division and number one team in the AFC. I think things will be a little bit different next year if the Ravens don't have half of their roster get injured and they have to play, running backs at corner in the secondary versus an elite passing offense like the Bengals. I think they're a little bit overhyped. They're in the moment. I'm going to let them have their moment. It should be fun. Two teams that normally aren't here. So it should be exciting. I'm done enough blabbering. I'll catch you guys in the next video. Peace.